Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're discussing this morning MBC reforms and digital switchover phase 2. As a background, Nigeria is set to roll out phase 2 of the digital switchover effective from April 29. And to begin our discussion on the subject matter, let's take this report by Abdulsalam Jibril.
In 2016, the federal government officially began the transition from analog to digital broadcasting, known as digital switchover, with a pilot rollout in Jos, the Plateau State capital. The digital switchover is meant to transform the television broadcasting system across the country from the current analog to digital mode. Other states involved in the first phase include Kwara, Kaduna, Enugu, Osun, and the Federal Capital Territory. 2 years later, however, the project was stalled due to challenges that include equipment, affordability, and accessibility. Determined to complete the project, the federal government has recently set up a 14-member ministerial task force to drive the rollout and also begin the analog switch-off process. But before embarking on the analog switch-off in any state, the government said it will ensure that the digital terrestrial television DTT signal has covered at least 70% of the population in that state, while the remaining 30% will be covered by direct-to-home DTH satellite signal. According to the timetable for the second rollout, expected to last for 4 months, is to begin on the 29th of April 2021. States to be covered under this phase include Lagos, Rivers, and Kano states, with Gombe and Yobe states expected to follow suit. Experts say the digital switchover will enhance digital television penetration and better quality television service. Other benefits of the process include job creation in the creative and set-top box manufacturing and retail sectors, among others. The questions to ask at this juncture is, how successful was the first phase of the rollout? Are there measures in place to surmount the challenges encountered during the first phase, such as the manufacture of set-top box, which is essential for the rollout? Guests on the program will speak to these and more shortly.
Many thanks, Abdul Salam Jibril, for that background. We have a number of guests to discuss this issue, but we're beginning with the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Honorable Minister, delighted to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Kingsley. Thank you.
Okay. We've, of course, had you over the years discussing aspects of digital switchover and the necessary broadcast reforms to ensure that the DSO, as digital switchover is also called, turns out to be a success. But as we do know, after the pilot phase, there was a break in the switchover that occurred about 3 years ago, but a new impetus has now been given to the digital switchover. Tell us what the experience has been like and where we are now with the second phase being afoot.
Thank you, Kingsley, and good morning, Nigerians. I think the major challenge we had in the first phase have been largely issue of funding, and I want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. President, who recently approved a 9.4 billion naira to pay outstanding services, and this has given us an impetus to roll out the phase 2. But even when we were hampered by funds, our dream of rolling out did not die, and we kept working. And things that we could do without money, which are also quite important to the success of the transition, we embarked upon. And this is largely in the area of regulatory and legal framework. In particular, we had to amend the broadcasting code in a way that would make the digital switchover a viable proposition, because the digital switchover is meant to deepen the broadcasting industry, and largely it is done in a manner that will change the entire ecosystem. But first and foremost, we had to get right the legal and regulatory framework, and that's why we embarked upon the amendment of certain provisions of the code. This amendment meant mainly to encourage and ensure a level playing ground for everybody, and at the same time to ensure that the local content and the domestic market actually thrives under the new ecosystem. And I think one of the first amendments we did was in section 9.11, which is compulsory acquisition and access to premium content. What this entails is that under this amendment, the rights owner are mandated to sell or retail their rights to channel owners or to even their competitors. And this is because without doing this, you will not be able to have a level playing ground. Let me give you an example. If, for instance, I am subscribed to MultiChoice today, and I watch Super League, or I watch EPL, and Kingsley is subscribed to Star Times, and he cannot watch this particular series. If he wants to do so, he has to go and acquire another set box, which is the MultiChoice. But with this amendment, it's now possible for Star Times to go to MultiChoice and say, we want you to retail to us, sell to us, your rights at an agreed fees, so that people who are subscribed also to Star Times can also watch, this Super League or EPL. And I think this is very important because it has cut down the cost of entry to new entrants. Another area where we felt we must make amendments is in the area of advertising. We realize, the major players in the industry, the major stakeholders in this industry are the channel owners, the content owners, advertising agencies, media owners. But over time, we found that the content owners and the channel owners have been at the short end of the stick, in the sense that advertising money has always been going to the wrong hands. And we have a situation whereby advertisers pay advertising companies who place the adverts on television, on radio, but for months, the channel owners are not paid. And this has led to the inability of channel owners to invest in content or better programming. So what we have done now is that we have amended, I think it's section 7.8 of the code, or 6.21, I'm not too sure, in which within 60 days, you see, if you place an advert and you do not pay the channel within 60 days, small fact, within 45 days, the channel owner should make a complaint. Within 60 days, if you have not settled your debt, then you are barred from advertising on any radio or television station in Nigeria. We took this cue from the banks. The central bank, when they issued this, a directive that if you owe one bank, you can't take a loan in another bank. So we believe that with this amendment, it is going to strengthen the hands of channel owners and content owners because they'll be paid on in time. And we've gone very far in the implementation of this particular provision of the amendment. The APCON, the Advertising Professional Council of Nigeria, and the NBC, they met and they have entered into an MOU with a third-party platform that is going to provide the software and the app, whereby on the dashboard, the NBC and the APCON will know exactly how much you are owing and what you are owing. And but we intend also to go on a road show where we are going to meet the content owners and TV channel owners, so that we can all be on the same frequency on this matter. And we believe that this is going to be very important because you see, without content, the DSO is going to fail. Another area which we believe that we've put in a good regulatory framework is in the area of local content. You see, before now, you see foreign soaps, series on our prime time, and it is 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. belt. And we now made a regulation that only local content should be, that at least 60% of your programming between those, 7 to 10 p.m. should be local content. But what we found out was that what was called local content was actually more or less, foreign, programs. So we now amended the code to ensure, one, that for a content to be local, the producer must be a Nigerian. The director must be a Nigerian. The author must be a Nigerian. But it does not stop at that. We went further to say that 75% of the lead actor supporting cast must be Nigerians. Also that 75% of money spent in production, in post-production, must be spent in Nigeria. 75% of services in respect of that production must be in Nigeria. And we believe that with this, we are going to strengthen local content. Another area which I think will interest Nigerians in how we are familiar with code is also in the area of, again, advertising. What is common today is to see products made in Nigeria. The adverts for those products are actually probably done in South Africa or in the US. So we are medical to say that if a product you want to advertise on the Nigerian territory is made in Nigeria, grown in Nigeria, or processed in Nigeria, then you must make sure that the advert is also produced in Nigeria. But since we cannot stop you from where you are going to make your advert, your production, for every advert which is not for a product made in Nigeria, I'll give an example, like probably say Gulda. You want to make an advert on Gulda. Gulda is made, processed in Nigeria. If you go to South Africa to produce an advert which you are going to air to Nigerians, because Nigerians consume Gulda. Now, what we have amended the code is that for every time that advert is aired in Nigeria, either on radio or on television, you pay a fine of 100,000 naira. And this, in other words, we're not stopping you from going to, make your production in America or in South Africa. But if you are going to advertise on Nigerian territory, for every advert, if you are going to pay a fine of 100,000. In other words, if Gulda or whoever makes an advert and in South Africa or anywhere, and it's shown on NTA, if it shows it 10 times a day, to pay 100,000 10 times. And the idea is we have set up what we call a content development fund. So that fine is put in that fund to help us to develop local content and to also help up and coming, artists. But I think one other area where I think will interest Nigerians is the area of sports rights. You see, sports, especially football, actually drives, advertisement. And for a successful DSO, we must get it right. The practice before now is that somebody goes to EPL and gets an exclusive right to show EPL matches. Under section 7.8, I think, it's 3.11, sorry. We've now said that, yes, you can go and buy rights from EPL, but nobody can buy exclusive rights. In other words, if you go as a company to buy EPL rights, you must let them know that when it comes to Nigeria, you will be compelled to share it with any other platform or channel. And this is not just this, and this is not just sports, even news programs on other channels. So we have stopped the issue of exclusivity. You cannot, especially in the area of sports and news, you can't go to EPL today and say, Lai Mohammed and company, they can show EPL. And we went further, also in that area, to say that if a company, for instance, should invest $1 million naira or $1 million in bringing EPL to Nigeria, that company must also be ready to spend 30% of that $1 million in producing a local content along the same line. In other words, if, say, Maltina or Guinness decides to bring in EPL, which is English football, we have no problem with that. He must also invest in covering our local league to the tune of 30% of what he has paid for that.
What has been the industry reaction to this slate of reforms that you've just itemized?
Kingsley, it's a very good question. You see, we've been attacked from every quarter. Even those who normally should benefit from these reforms, either they don't understand it, or they have not even read it, they have taken up arms against us. They talked about intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights are not absolute. When there's a tension between domestic rights and international rights, domestic rights will always win. See, all we are trying to do is protect the local media industry and the creative industry. Yeah, so the critics have come at us. They've made all kinds of allegations, but our position is very clear that until the anti-competitive and monopolistic tendencies are removed, we will not be able to grow local content. Let me give you an example, Kingsley. The NBC has issued about 30 pay TV licenses. Only one is struggling to survive.
30.
We have, NBC, sir, has licensed 30 Nigerian pay TV licenses. Has given out 30 pay TV licenses to Nigerians. Only one is managing to survive. Why? Because of this anti-competitive and monopolistic tendency of the foreign, companies. And it's not always foreign. It's a matter of, you see, those who have the financial muscle. I'll give you an example. And that's one thing we did in the code. We said you cannot go and acquire rights and warehouse it. See, because what they used to do before is that I want to kill NTA. So I'll go and acquire a very popular program. I have no need for it, but I have the money. So by acquiring it, I deprive NTA from having it, but I don't need it. So these are some of the reforms we brought in. We've also said that if you are also, if for instance, during an EPL match, you are advertising, you see, you are advertising a product. You must also make sure that, okay, let me give you an example. Say, okay, this Guinness has brought in EPL. So during okay, say Kingsley has brought in EPL.
I will bring in La Liga.
Very good. For La Liga. And during La Liga, Guinness is advertised. We'll compel Guinness to also advertise when we are playing a local league.
That's NFL.
Okay.
That's the only way we can grow this industry. But unfortunately, but of course, as to be expected, we've had very few supporters. Probably those who have done so have not found their voices. But I've been accused of destroying the industry. I've been accused that, this will lead to foreign investors not coming. It's not true. On the contrary, these reforms have encouraged local actors, and there's no way we have infringed on anybody's intellectual property rights.
But much as that goes on, Honorable Minister, this administration seems to be very serious about these foreign investors. And of course, we need them because when they come, they really boost the economy and things get going, and faster for that matter. And here we are today. Critics are attacking you in that direction, saying you're discouraging foreign investors from coming, and they themselves at home are not really matching up to your expectation. Now, how would you reconcile this? You really need the foreigners to come, and really want the ones at home to really thrive. How do you put these two together so that it's going to be mutually of mutual benefit?
We have only curbed anti-competitive and monopolistic tendencies from anybody. You must provide a level playing ground for everybody. And like I said earlier, there's a contest between foreign interests and domestic interests. Any responsible government will ensure that domestic interests is satisfied. Now, there's nobody that can tell me that these laws or these amendments which we have effected, that they are anti or they are investor unfriendly. No. You see, when you look at our creative industry, the bulk of our content is local. But unfortunately, because of this anti-competitive and monopolist tendencies, we have not been able to allow our local channels, our content producers to thrive. Now, yes, even in EU, it's a delicate balance between intellectual property rights on the one hand, and also the domestic, interest, even in the EU. It's going to be like that for a very long time, but let me make it clear that curbing or prohibiting exclusivity is not the same thing as expropriation. No.
Okay.
And if we do not give our own young ones, our talents here, a chance, who will give them a chance? And that is why this this local content development fund is so important. And I'm already directing the NBC to ensure strict implementation of all these, of these regulations, because it's very simple. If Guinness, for instance, I'm sorry I'm using Guinness, if anybody should flout our regulations and advertises on, say, CNN 10 times, he must come back and also advertise on NTA. No, sorry. If anybody advertises, if you do an advert, rather, you do an advert in South Africa, you put it on CNN, and we look at that advert, say, fine, this advert was not made in Nigeria, it was actually made in South Africa. And when you see that 5 times a day, it's on CNN, you pay $500,000 to us. That $500,000 will go to the fund.
Content Development Fund. You're talking about enforcement. Honorable Minister, this is again one issue that has engaged us on Good Morning Nigeria from time to time. Yes, you have regulations, you have laws, but at the point of implementation, sometimes we develop code feet. How much cooperation are you getting? When I say you, I mean you as Ministry of Information and then the NBC as regulator from the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission? Because the issues you're talking about relating to exclusivity and the various reforms that you have brought about now to deal with antitrust matters that often lead to price gouging. That's to say people impose all kinds of fees and rates on you, and you have no choice because the person has an exclusive right or license to broadcast. How much of cooperation are you getting from the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission in terms of enforcement?
Well, in the first instance, some of these amendments are very recent. I think they are less than 6 months, if you remember. Some of them are probably less than 6 months, because I think it was the end of last year. I went to Lagos to unveil this new code. But I think, what we are doing is that we're also setting up a department within the NBC that will monitor this, the compliance. But more importantly, we need the buy-in and the cooperation of those who should benefit from this amendment. We're talking about the content owners, we're talking about the TV channel owners. You see, if we don't have a complaint, for instance, how do we know that the code has been violated? Say, okay, for instance, now, you should know as, professionals, that this particular program that is shown on this belt, the director is not a Nigerian, the producer is not a Nigerian, the author is not a Nigerian, the cast, 75% of them are not Nigerians. When we now get that complaint, the department in NBC that is charged with compliance will now swing into action. Of course, on our own too, we try to monitor as much as possible. But I think we need the cooperation a lot of the of the stakeholders, those for whose benefit these amendments have been made.
What kind of, Nadabo, there's something that's I know that you are itching to say, let's bring this in. It's always been a major challenge that media owners face with advertisers and advertising agencies. Advertisers that route their adverts through agencies pay the agencies do not then remit the monies to the media owners. Yeah. Well, this problem was rife in the newspaper world. And newspapers then resorted to cash and carry. In other words, no more credit.
Right.
If you don't pay, your advert will not be exposed. But it appears that the broadcast industry was unable, and probably still is unable, to insist on that cash and carry. In other words, have very little window for credit that you are giving to advertising agencies. But it appears that, I say this with respect to a number of very reputable advertising agencies, a number of agencies are just recalcitrant. They collect the money from the advertiser, and then they hold on to this money and use it for other investments and starve the media enterprises of the funds that the otherwise should be theirs.
But that's precisely the mischief we have cured with the new amendment.
Yeah.
Now, with the new amendment now, you can only owe the channel, the media, either TV or radio, for 60 days.
For 2 months, right?
60 days.
Yeah.
That is the maximum. If you owe him, if you don't pay him within 2 months, then nobody will carry your advert.
Not even that very station.
No, not in that station. Every other station. So it's like you offend one, you offend all. Now, but you see, we need the complaints, and we have set up, an app now, which we need the TV owners, the media owners, to upload. So when you are receiving adverts, you upload it on our platform. We know the date of that you have uploaded, that you have taken the advert, the placement. Within 45 days, you are not paid, you make a complaint to us. Within 60 days, we block you, we bar that company from advertising on any radio station, any television station, whether it is, DTT platform.
Advertising any other product or service.
That is the company.
It's the company.
The company, not just as the program. The company that is owed, the company that is owing the channels, whether it's including the advertising agencies, will not be able to place anything. And I believe that when that goes live in a few weeks' time, it will probably cure that mischief.
Now, these are far-reaching amendments you've made, looking at the loopholes which you tried to block all around advertisement and content and the rest of them. Now, how will this reform really drive the digital switch over when we look at what happened in the first phase and then what we anticipate in the second phase, because it seems you are very much, belted up, if I may use the phrase, in order to get these things, going by the beginning of next month.
Right. You see, there are many players in the DSO. We have the signal distributors. We have the set box manufacturers. We have the content owners. We have the software, the middleware companies. Now, how would these amendments drive the DSO? You see, with these amendments, we've been able to address challenges and transaction costs and risks that have made TV channel owners reluctant to invest in the industry. Let me give you an example.
Maybe you could just summarize them all because time is really rushing. Yes,
now, you see, without this amendment, the DSO would not be a viable proposition.
Okay.
Because content is key. Advertising is key. Now, content, especially local content, is very important to start, and that is why you have the provision that even programs coming on your television must be local, and that even you must ensure that 60% of your programs are local. And we have defined local. that it must be produced by Nigeria, it must be directed by Nigeria, directed by Nigeria, and the cast. And again, even the money, you see, if you produce a series or a program, 75% of the expenditure must be consumed by Nigerians. Now, so we have taken care of that. Advertising is so key. If we did not go into this issue of advertising, one, that you cannot, if you want to advertise a product made in Nigeria, that advert must be produced in Nigeria. If it's not, you get a fine. Otherwise, if there's no advertisement, you're not going to get, you won't be able to, it won't be viable. And more importantly, curbing the monopolistic and non-competitive tendencies will allow new entrants into the game.
I was just, Honourable Minister, we have to let you go now. But you've used the...
But I don't want to go.
Okay,
Yes,
we'll retain you, but you've used the word fine. Maybe there's a synonym for it. I was wondering,
Penalty.
A penalty or a surcharge.
Yes.
Surcharge.
Yeah.
A surcharge.
Yeah.
You know, of course, the legal background, when you say fine, what's your capacity then to impose a fine?
Yeah.
So maybe a surcharge, so that those whom you say have been attacking you would also say, it's assuming the powers of a court. All right, assuming the powers of a court.
No, it's law. It's regulation.
It's a regulation.
Easy.
That's the Honourable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Pleasure having you on the program today. Of course, there are many aspects that we'll continue to focus on when we're getting ahead with the digital switchover.
And I'm glad, sir, that you have outside there the major mosque.
They are the ones we are bringing in now, which is why we allow you to go, so that you go and face the software side, and then they face the hardware side. Yes. So, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, thanks a lot for being around. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on NTA's network service. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation with the other guests who will be talking about the more technical aspects of the digital switchover.
It's Good Morning Nigeria. You're watching it from the Nigerian Intelligence Authority. And we're discussing this morning, the digital switchover phase 2, and that is going to be rolled out maybe by April or thereabout. And the first one has gone, and I'm trying to see how this one is going to work out. To really set the ball rolling and have a discussion going, we have in the studio Engineer Edward Amana, Chairman Digiteam Nigeria. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and then also here with us in the studios, we'd like to welcome Sir Godfrey Ohuabunwa, who is Chairman, Set-Top Box Manufacturers. We'd like to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, Sadiq Musa, General Manager of Integrated Television Service, ITS, is also here with us in the studios. Sadiq, delight to have you this morning.
Yeah, good morning.
All right, let's begin with Engineer Edward Amana. Again, all three of you are familiar faces on Good Morning Nigeria with respect to the digital switchover. The Honourable Minister, whom we signed off a while ago, already has given an indication as to why there was a hiatus in terms of the pilot rollout and then the interruption that occurred in 2018. He's dealt with some of the soft aspects of this digital switchover. But Engineer Amana, give us an insight. What went right with the first phase? And since the interruption, what has gone wrong, if any?
Well, starting from the pilot in JOS, we learned a lot of lessons because JOS was actual hands-on experience we had in deploying digital broadcastings. And from there, we carried that experience to Abuja and the subsequent locations that we now rolled out. What went right? Okay, people were excited about the rollout from a location where you're getting just maybe NTA and 2 other stations. You're now presented over 20 to 30 channels of programming. So the uptake was very good. What then transpired after we finished the first 6 locations, we ran into an election year. And you know how it is in Nigeria when you're trying to elect a president. Every other thing more or less was put on hold, and with some crisis in the political parties and so on. The honorable minister, who was then actually the driving force, had his hands full with political issues. And thereafter, there was also the issue of problems relating to litigations and so on in the regulator's office. So after the new president was elected, well, luckily we finally got the same minister back in the chair. But it took a while for us to now garner, because the service providers, the signal distributors, the outsourced people, the satellite people, were being owed money for services already delivered. And without payment, going forward was going to be a bit of a problem, because they have staff they are paying, they have equipment they are maintaining, and so on and so forth. And therefore, they were maintaining what they had. But to now move forward, they needed to be paid what was being owed. That, in the main, are the reasons why we had this lull. But fortunately, now government has approved payment of what is being owed. And thereafter, if the money is released to them, we can now venture to move on. But the strategy this time is that we're moving out to economically viable locations. If you look at advert take, which is the main source of the broadcasters, the free-to-air broadcasters, over 60% of adverts in Nigeria is in Lagos. So it does make sense for us to move to Lagos. And if we roll out in Lagos, then they will make more money. They'll be able to pay the signal distributors. And with what money they are paying the signal distributors, they can now roll out to the other less economically viable areas of Nigeria. So that's the strategy going forward.
Okay. Thank you, Engineer Edward. Let's hear from Godfrey Homewa, Chairman, Set-Top Box Manufacturers. Between Jos and now, that was the first rollout and now. You've been there, trying to make things happen, trying to get these set-top boxes ready, and of course for Nigerians to be able to acquire and use. And we will not really mince word in saying that once the government has set up a date in order to continue with this DSO, it seems the manufacturers of set-top boxes may be ready to go along with the government. So far, how ready are you to get started along with the government?
Basically, as you know, set-top box is what everybody will see. The set-top box is what you see outside the content of the DSO. It's a terminal equipment which you use to receive the signal. The set-top box manufacturers has been ready since. In fact, if you recall from Jos, the set-top box like a vehicle under motion. They were kicked in the open factory. And since then, they started manufacturing, but the law affected the business because the factory cannot manufacture because the set-top box is proprietary to the DSO. It's not the set-top box can use for any other thing. So that affected most of the companies that were set up. They lost money, But the good thing is that over the last couple of months, when we started back discussing with NBC, most of the factories are back. We are ready. In terms of the factories are ready. In terms of the companies are ready. Some of them have started producing. But however, the only challenge, and I'll throw it quickly to public, it's the issue of foreign exchange. Because, as you know, most of the parts the chipsets are imported. Nobody manufactures chipsets in Africa. There are few companies in the world that manufacture chipsets. So outside foreign exchange, which also, with all sense of respect, and the minister has already taken proactive action already by working with the Ministry of Finance to be able to create a window, an FX window for the manufacturers to use to place order for the raw materials. Outside that, we are home and dry. We are ready to roll out. and with the boxes already being produced.
Do we have a sense of the numbers?
Yes.
Because in the first phase, that's also incorporating the pilot launch in Jos, there were some issues around availability of set-top boxes and even the cost said to have been subsidized at the material time. So what numbers are we looking at now?
Now, the JOS was okay, but remember, bear in mind, the JOS was pilot. It was subsidized. A box that worth at that about $40 was subsidized. They were giving free of charge because the government gave a 1.5. 1.5 was already the DAF. Now, the difference that you're going to pay for the box now. And the box price hasn't really changed in terms of dollar, but the Naira has changed. So recall in JOS, as at then, it was either 150 or 200, now 150 Naira to $1. So if a box, typically a box of $20, so it times 150 to 20 at that time, you know how much you're looking at. Now, that same dollar is now 500 Naira. So a box would have been expected to buy at 3,000, then you buy it home about 10,000 now. Because that's not that the price of the box changed. The price, the value of the Naira and dollar has changed.
Still talking about the foreign exchange.
Yes, foreign exchange. So to talk about that, that's where we have the challenge. But outside that, the availability of the box will be there. It's based on demand. And I believe that the manufacturers will meet the demand of the public. The only way we don't have control over is issue of foreign exchange. So, and we believe that government will make more, CBN in particular, will make foreign exchange available. Because right now, you know, they're rationing foreign exchange. You put up from M for $2 million. CBN will just give you maybe $20,000. Next week, they give you $100,000. But I believe, I'm very sure, based on the task force which the chairman is, which the minister is chairing, that CBN will give us dollar. Now, to answer your question on numbers, to roll out this second phase, which is Lagos, Kano, and Port Harcourt, alone, even with Gombe and the other cities, we're looking at about a minimum of 10 million boxes. 10 million.
Do the manufacturing companies have the capacity to produce even half of those numbers, assuming they had the raw materials, and therefore also access to...
They have capacity. The point that, you know, it depends on demand. They have capacity, but they take a factory will produce just as alone up to 5 million boxes because it's not a chipset. So the other factory, bear in mind, we are 13. And some of them have not even started because there's no business. So many people see demand, all of them will start. So by the time they all start, we'll have more than enough because the people who are licensed were more. The white people said a few, and I know a few was 2 or 3 or 4, but they licensed 13. So they are capable to produce that quantity. The only, like I said, I need to put that caveat is foreign exchange. But I'm definitely sure with the promises the minister have said, with the way, even in the committee, which we are members, the Minister of Finance have also promised that they make foreign exchange available.
It seems like Sadiq Musa, you're itching to say something, but all the same, before we get down to that, let me just exhaust this on a while.
Okay.
We're talking about the manufacturing of the set-top boxes, and I don't want to believe that all the components of the set-top boxes are found in Nigeria. I think some of them are imported, and then it seems like there are some percentages of tariff that has been talked about in the reform that needs to be looked at very well in order to make your job easier. I don't know, how would that really enhance your work in trying to get these things produced en masse, and two, the cost brought down to the level that the common man can afford it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. One of the things the government have also done with issue of reviewing, which applies to review the tariff. The set-top box has the component, the CKD components, which some now 10, some are 5. So if you were asking that there should be 0% on it, the reason so that the box will be affordable.
Zero completely.
Yes, because you need to increase the technology transfer. It's a new thing. 2, also to make it affordable, one way is that the federal government had been subsidizing, but the local government has to subsidize it because there are 2 rules. The box is the key to which federal state government can begin to look at collect TV license fee. Okay. Hope you know we're losing everywhere in the world, they pay TV license fee. So this box will make it possible for local governments to collect TV license fee. So to make it cheaper, local government should, the way federal government has subsidize the box, at least for the indigent people. And that's how it's done all over the world. Secondly, or thirdly, another way to make the box cheaper is if you take off the tariff, the local government support, then the other point is being able to look at all the other raw materials that are local. because there are several other things that are local. Over 30% are local. Things like the boxes, the cable, some of the other of the companies, you can get them locally. Now, the set-top box manufacturers are new. So we're asking for a pioneer status. This is the right of a new. So now, if they each give them right of reduce their tax or give them this pioneer status, that also help reduce the cost of that box. Okay. If that way the box will be affordable, at least to a level where people can buy them.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Godfrey. Let's bring in now Sadiq Musa, General Manager of Integrated TV Service. Sadiq, tell us, what was your experience in the first phase of the rollout, and are you excited now that the second phase is afoot?
Yeah, thank you very much. The first phase of rollout has been very, hectic for us because the issue of, not payment of money that needs to be paid as at when it's supposed to be paid. The fact is that at the period of dual elimination, federal government is supposed to actually sponsor the payment of tariff to BSDs. But at that point, the money was not paid, so it was an accumulated sum of money. So that actually derailed the rollout of other sites. But now that the federal government has come in to pay this money, with the approval of the FEC to pay this money, we are very much excited and we are set to roll out in other sites. Our technical partners are actually ready there on ground to, assist us in doing this. We are set in Lagos as it is today. We are set at 3 sites in Lagos. We are already, deployed equipment to Lagos at 3 sites. By April 29th, we are very sure that we will come out handy in Lagos.
No, when you say the money that was supposed to have been paid wasn't paid, could you be a bit more explicit? Who was owing whom and for what?
How it's supposed to happen is that there's a period called dual elimination, the period where the analog transmitters are still on and digital, digital transmitters are on too. The content provider will be running double cost if you ask them to pay the pay for the digital broadcasting. So the idea is that federal government will now have to take the responsibility of paying the BSDs, the money that was supposed to be paid by the broadcasters, because they are running the analog facilities. So at this point, there was nothing has come in for us. Therefore, we find it very difficult to move ahead. So that's very, very difficult for us. But we thank God that federal government has actually approved some of money to be paid to us so that we can, forge ahead.
Engineer Amanda, could you maybe add up? It seems like you should.
The fact of the matter is that the signal distributor is supposed to transmit the signal of every broadcast station digitally to the homes. Now the stations are supposed to pay carriage fee to the signal distributors. But because stations like NTA, for example, AIT channels, they are still running their own analog transmitters. You cannot ask them to be paying carriage fee while they are also transmitting analog. Until they switch off their analog transmitters, they cannot be compelled to pay for being on the digital platform. But the main reason why we have not been able to switch off in some of the areas we have launched is that there are still gaps. We've done a survey of Abuja, for example. People in Karo area behind the hills are not receiving signals from the Pinnacle transmitter. Okay? But as at now, they are receiving analog signals. So we cannot compel the operators in Abuja to switch off. We've already identified the locations where we have to put gap fillers. Once that is done, we'll shut down the analog. And then the owners of the analog stations now will be compelled. In the interim, while we're running analog and digital side by side, at one of those stakeholders' conference, it was agreed that government should pay operational fee to the 2 signal distributors within the period of dual elimination. So,
And
Yeah,
let me
I was just wondering. You have,
just to
let's
add up on this, just to find out, the DSO is being driven on a single frequency, I guess.
yes, to some extent.
Some extent,
To some
yeah.
extent. You will recall that the mandate, we have 2 signal distributors as at now.
Yeah.
The mandate of each one of them is to set up a nationwide digital transmission network. So ITS, which is the one coming out of the stable of NTA, will have a single frequency on their main transmission line, while Pinnacle will also have a single frequency, but separated away from the frequency that ITS is using, so there will be no interference between the 2 operators. Okay, but while you are running a single frequency network, there are bound to be areas, shadow areas that main transmitter cannot reach. So where such ones occur, they have to use a different frequency for a low power transmitter to cover them. Okay. But like we said, initially we set up, we agreed on, on the standard of 90 to 95% population coverage. Now that has been brought down to about 70% to enable us fast track the switch off of analog transmitters. So
okay.
where we are able to achieve 70% population coverage, what is not reached can then be filled up via the DTH platform.
But what about the pay platforms?
The pay platforms, as at now, they are self-carrying.
Right.
But the regulation in Nigeria, the law in Nigeria is that we'll have maximum of 3 signal distributors.
Right.
So eventually, the existing 2, that's GoTV and StarTimes terrestrial, will have to migrate to any one of the 2 signal distributors of their choice going forward. Because now that they are self-carrying, it's a negation of the rule of the country.
Okay.
All right. So eventually they have to migrate. But the problem is the 2 signal distributors have not covered enough population within the country. And some of these pay TV are operating where the signal distributors have not yet set up. So going forward, there will be an arrangement. They will migrate from self-carrying to the platform of one of the signal distributors.
Okay, now before they migrate, how would you reconcile now between the single frequency thing, the 2 platforms, and then the pay platforms you have? How would you reconcile that?
Like I said, the pay platform will migrate to any of the signal distributors of their choice. So they will have to either shut down their transmitters, or those transmitters will be bought over by the signal distributor. All right, so they will still maintain our single frequency networks. 1 single frequency for ITS, a second single frequency network for Pinnacle.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I mean, Engineer Mana or Sir Godfrey can take up this question. Let's take a market like Lagos, for instance. You've already talked about the huge chunk of advertising revenue that goes there. We also know that the media market in Lagos is very elaborate. I'm not sure of the numbers now, but obviously you have many more radio and television stations in Lagos. The population also is a factor. So when phase 2 of the DSO makes a landfall in Lagos, what will this mean to the radio listener in Lagos, or to the viewer, sorry, more particularly for television, actually, not the radio. But what would this mean for the television viewer in Lagos, who already probably has 1 or 2 of these, either GoTV or has DSTV or has StarTimes? What would that mean?
Basically, I think this is a good question. It's a benefit. And that's the whole essence of the DSO. The DSO provides the same feel, makes the common man have the same benefit of pay TV with a free-to-air TV. How do I mean is that pay TV, you have 20 channels, 30 channels, and you pay 3,000 or 5,000 or 9,000. Right now, you will have free-to-air TV where you have 30, 60, 90, 100 channels, paying nothing. That's the benefit. Now, that's for the advertisers.
Sorry.
Yes.
Paying nothing.
Paid nothing.
In the meantime, you were saying that it enables local governments to collect TV licenses.
You paid nothing. Your license, you must pay license fee now. In fact, the truth is that even those who are watching Go TV, let me call their names, who are on the pay TV will still pay TV licenses going forward. Okay. It's the rule, it's the law of Nigeria, been there in the constitution. So what it does now, that this is a revenue over 1 trillion that the federal and local government has lost over the years. So now you don't pay nothing. Okay, even if you put it's 1,500 naira for a whole year. So if you divide it by 12, you're paying about 100 naira for nothing. Even if you have a pay TV, you still pay. So you're not paying anything. I want to zero two of them out. So the benefit for Lagosians is that you're going to have more channels free of air, free to air, which includes even sports. 2, it will increase advertisement, which means that advertisers will have avenue to be able to send their adverts to targeted audience. What I mean is that right now, one of the benefits of DSO is that you can have thematic channels. You are aware that last week somebody brought out, now you have a law channel. There's a program now like Judge Judy. With the benefit of what we're also trying to do now, all these media, some small talk shows in Nigeria, we create a channel for them. That's one of the rules, one of the new regulations coming out. So there'll be more TV channels for people to watch. There'll be more avenue to harness the content which Nigerians are endowed with. So the benefit is huge in terms of advertisement. The benefit is also, bear in mind, at the end of it all, we will have audience measurement, which is one of the things that bedeviled the industry, that people don't have audience measurement. But with the end of the DSO, I'm sure by the time we switch off, there'll be audience measurement. So you'll be able to know what, advertisers will be able to know what each person is watching, target their advertise. So for learning in Lagos, the news is that Lagos will be receiving more channels. The common man will be receiving more channels from 30 to graduate between 30, 60, 90, up to 120 channels at the end of the day, free of charge.
And even more with that, when we look at JOS and then we look at now, JOS, the launch at that time and today, it seems like the whole, exercise is being centered at the state capitals of the cities. And we now try to see a situation where Nigerians too in the rural areas and other towns outside the cities will want to benefit from this largesse, if I may call it so, from DSO and the technology. Engineer Amhana, I don't know, since then to date, and we're now getting started again in April, how do we get this thing spread?
Well, JOS was a pilot study. So we took typical location of the state capital to first deploy. Now, ITS is actually going forward in JOS. We're supposed to set up or erect 2 additional locations. I think Mongu and Langtang. All right, from where they're supposed to cover the whole of Plateau State.
Okay.
All right. So once it's done, that is on the timetable actually. We're looking at switching off Plateau, I think by June of this year.
Analog.
Yes.
Switching off analog in Plateau
completely.
By June of this year completely.
Okay.
Before then, ITS must have set up their remaining 2 transmitting stations or relocating their existing transmitting station to a more wider coverage area. I don't know how they want to do it. That's up to Sadiq to fathom out. It's either they build 2 additional stations or relocate their existing station to where they can cover the state effectively. So once that is done, we are off and we close down the analog transmitters in the whole of Plateau. And then the STP manufacturers now have an open market there to go, and this time around, not 1,005, but we also had made arrangements for multiple cost set-top boxes. Fortunately, we have companies that have actually, the manufacturers have set up surface mount technology now, which can give us the capability of redesigning the boxes in such a way that you can have boxes still maintaining the $20 price, boxes of higher cost for people like you who would want to record programs when they're away from home and so on.
Right.
So it's not just limited. The people in the rural areas just want to watch television. Others want to be able to record programs while they're away from home and so on and so forth.
And
So
even
you
some
have
other accessories which
internet.
technology brings
so
around.
apart from that, the boxes, apart from audience measurement, actually can serve as an internet hub in the house, because a hybrid box that can enable you access the internet through the box in the homes. So you can imagine a place like, not Langtan now, Shendam, and the surrounding villages in that area. The guys in the local villages who have access to those boxes can also have access to the internet in their homes. Okay, so, but the situation in Abuja, Jos, is peculiar because of the topography. We will not encounter the same scenario going to Lagos, Kano, and Rivers, because these are places that are basically very flat land. And so from the launch, we can cover the whole of Lagos. So we're starting off on 29th, and by October of this year, we should be able to switch off all the analog transmitters in Lagos.
So, Sadiq Musa, when you say, Engineer Mana says, switch off all analog transmitters, what happens to those transmitters? Those analog transmitters, once they are switched off, are they dead? Do they then become e-waste? And then how do you handle them once they are switched off? You have an idea?
Well, I think the regulator will take responsibility for that. NBC is in charge of, what we're talking about here. So as soon as we switch off, the NBC will actually know what to do with the analog transmitters.
Yeah, because,
Actually,
but who owns the
if I may come in
transmitters? The
here.
transmitters don't belong to NBC.
No, what they are the one to take charge of whatever, because they are the regulators here. So whatever we dispose, will
But
come
they
back
don't
to them.
belong to the regulators. They belong to
No,
the owners of the station.
Because they are overseeing
come
this.
in here. In the main, the analog transmitters will constitute electronic waste, except those who have, except the few that were bought in the last 3-4 years that are digitally processed and can be converted from analog to digital. Outside of that, any transmitter that is more than 5 years old now will constitute electronic waste. All right? So it depends. It belongs to the owner of the station, but the thing is, he's no longer going to use it. So of what benefit is it to him? So, but we are in discussion with the environmental agencies. It's not just a Nigerian problem. Everywhere that we've done a switch off of analog transmitters, this problem is at the background there. And there are agencies worldwide that actually handling the disposal of electronic waste.
I was just wondering. I'm not an expert in the engineering field. Couldn't analog transmitters be useful for other purposes? Security.
Would they be really for security?
Yeah, security. It was transmit signals. I don't know whether. I mean, let the academics go and worry about that. Sadiq, it looks like can't transmitters be used for other purposes?
Well, even though if you want to use it for other purposes, you're going to use this as a transmitter, and the spare part is going to be very, very, very expensive at the end of the day because you cannot access them anymore, and the expertise too to maintain that transmitter will no longer be there because people have migrated. So it will be very, very difficult to use this for other purposes as the case may be.
Okay, many thanks, Sadiq Musa. You really want to say something?
Yes,
We have maybe
before,
30 seconds.
I think before we leave, it's key. People need to begin to. Two people I want to get to is to get the importance of the DSO. The DSO is a very important thing for Nigeria. Why I say so is that despite the benefit it will create for knowledge transfer, DSO will be able to provide a lot of funding for Nigeria. As you're aware, if we migrate to and cut off, there will be spectrum available for the federal government to sell. This spectrum will fetch us, from what we have calculated today, more than $2 billion. And this is something you can sell every 15 years. So it's money waiting for us. The money we exploit to even explore oil, this is quick hand. 3, the set-top box, the digital migration creates huge employment opportunity. Right. Nigeria is known for creative industry.
It's all right. It seems like we'll keep talking and going on and on with this topic. Kingsley, it's a very wide one here. It seems we'll have to come back later and then keep talking about this.
At some point, we'll have to revisit this because now phase two is not covering the entire country. So probably there will also be phase 3. But we wish you good speed, Engineer Mana, and Engineer Mana, of course, Chairman, DigiTeam Nigeria, Sir Godfrey Onwuabuwa, Chairman, set-top box. These are, the words, 3 letters, set-top box manufacturers. Thank you very much for being part of our conversation this morning. And now, Sadiq Musa, General Manager of Integrated Television Service, we appreciate your being here.
Thank you so much.
So, that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you. Tomorrow the program returns same time, 7 in the morning. Until then, take care of yourself. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Yusuf, please take responsibility. Coronavirus is spread. See you tomorrow.